So Pakistan's population, as per last survey, is 241 million people. As per the same survey, people up to the age of 14 are 40% of the population, which means the remaining population which is left is roughly 145 million. Then according to World Bank, 38% people are living at the poverty line, right? So I don't think somebody living at a poverty line who does not have enough money to meet his basic physiological needs will have any amounts left to be deposited into any type of bank other than moving some funds from one wallet to another wallet. So out of that 145 million people, because I've already taken the kids out up to 14 years of age, if you take another 40% out, so we are left with under 100 million people, roughly 90 million. If we look at the number of wallets and bank accounts in Pakistan, few days ago the number was roughly 85 million, but 2 days ago I read a report saying the number of wallets and bank accounts has increased 100 million. 90 million is the eligible bankable population, because you cannot open a bank account for somebody who is under 14 years of age. There is no point to ask somebody who is earning less than $3.50 per day to open a bank account, who is living at the poverty line according to the official definition and the published number of the poverty line. So in terms of having a wallet or a bank account, I don't know why people are talking about 30% and everything, which denominator which they are considering. I don't know if they are including people under 14 years of age into that, then definitely the number could come closer to 30% or 20%. But otherwise, it's almost 100%, frankly. So having bank accounts, somebody will argue that somebody will not have a bank account and another person will have 4 bank accounts. Yes, I agree. But even if we include that redundancy into it, the number which is like 90 million eligible bankable population, over 100 million bank accounts and wallets, I think the number will not drop to 30%. So I think the issue is not on having a bank account. The issue is having access to financing. Now, if we look at the number of borrowers of commercial banks, so there are 1.15 million borrowers from commercial banks, which is, if we look at almost 100 million bank accounts, 1.15 million is 1%. So the number of people having bank account and the number of people borrowing is only 1% in Pakistan. So to me, financial inclusion is actually 1%. It's not 30%. So I realized there are 2 other types of institutions which we don't consider generally as commercial banks, but they are there, they are licensed. So these are NBFIs, which are doing BNPL kind of transactions, nano financing. So there are roughly 5.3 million people who have taken some amount of money from these financial institutions. And there are microfinance banks who are regulated by central bank and microfinance institutions. So there are roughly 9.5 million people who have taken financing from them. So the 1.1 million number is not relevant. What number is relevant is the 9.3 million and the 5.3 million roughly. In the world, there is generally, when we talk about even Bangladesh, the financial inclusion bit has been more addressed by microfinance bank than commercial banks over there. So microfinance banks' roles cannot be disregarded. I think it has to be considered very seriously, and we need to have specialized institutions, at which at one point in time we had. Still, we have one specialized agri financial institution, which is Zarai Taraqqiyati Bank. It has the highest number of agri borrowers. So the idea should always be that these large financial institutions should be a wholesale financier to these small financial institutions, who then specializes in BNPL, in microfinance, in agri-finance, in SME finance, in women finance, because then they will be specialized. They will create that skill into those people, they will A, create financial literacy, B, they will enable them how to manage their businesses, how to manage their cash flows. So I think the challenge is in our thinking. The challenge is not in the execution. because our thinking needs to be challenged, and we are always looking up at 32 or 35 huge, large size banks where the minimum capital requirement is 10 billion rupees to start. So we are asking them to do nano financing, microfinancing, SME financing. So I think the expectation has an issue, the design has an issue, the thinking process has an issue. I think the thinking process need to be aligned. If voluntarily they make a strategy to come up with models through which they can lend money, they can finance to different segments of the society, both business and non-business segments, then they will create an impact and then they will grow. And for that, they need to A, have courage, and B, have right tools to manage their risk. So if those digital banks have that mindset that when they do their accounting, they are very clear that on an annual basis, if they are able to earn a return of say 30% or say 40%, make an NPL of 10%, which leaves a net return of 30% to them. And if they take their cost of fund out, which is say 20%, still they make 10%, they should forget about that 10% annual and move ahead in life. So that next year they make more 10% more on their funds. And after that they make 10% more because they have already recouped that lost 10% in the form of return. Then this model will work. An estimate which is available on internet about Pakistan, another report, there are 5 million businesses. Yeah. So it's not 200 million businesses, by the way, right? There are 5 million businesses. Out of that, people estimate 90% are SMEs, and which is, I think, is a very reasonable estimate because if you look at the stock exchange listed companies, there are some 600, 700 companies. So there's a small number which is listed. Definitely then large entities must be limited. So most of them are SMEs. So 90% are SMEs means 4.5 million SMEs. Out of that, if you look at the regular conventional banks financing to SMEs, the number which is available from central bank is roughly 1,65,000 only. So 1,65,000 versus 4.5 million is peanut. It's nothing, right? So if we really want to do SME financing or microfinancing or nano financing, then it should be a separate vertical. So that the head of risk has only one thing to do, which is SME or agri or nano or micro. Then a 1 million rupee transaction or a 10 million rupee transaction or a 20 million rupee transaction or even a 200 million rupee transaction, which is the maximum amount which one can lend to SME, will be very meaningful. But even a 200 million rupee credit proposal versus a 10 billion rupee credit proposal is worthless. And the amount of time which actually go into a 200 million rupee credit proposal will be almost equivalent to a 10 billion rupee credit proposal. And if the 10 billion rupee credit proposal is a government guaranteed credit proposal, so it is easier to approve it, and this one is difficult to approve. So it's a structural problem. The problem is in the mind. Without changing the mind, without changing the tools, we want to get the desired result. So what commercial banks are doing, it is needed, it is right, because government is a borrower. There are large projects which need to be funded. But these small SMEs, nanos and micros and agris also need to be funded. Yes. So either there should be a specialized institution or a specialized business vertical, but completely independent. So interestingly, most of the women are not part of the workforce. And even then we have an unemployed workforce of 5 million in Pakistan. And that is also the unfortunate part is that we have an illiteracy ratio of almost 38%. So that out of that 5 million people, 2 million people are illiterate. And almost all equivalent number are also unskilled. So the problem is having an unskilled and illiterate workforce and then not having women participating in the workforce. So I think this is something which will probably take a decade to improve. And the role of fathers is the most important role. because I have 3 daughters. So I realize that if I want to enable them, I am the most important person in their life. It is not my wife, it is me. Because the type of empowerment I am able to give to them is massive. Every father in Pakistan have to empower the daughter, and then we will have these girls in next 5 to 10 years part of our workforce. So any girl who is today 10 years of age, if she is empowered, in 8 years she will be part of the workforce. So what organizations in the name of digital transformation are trying to do, they are automating their existing work processes, which is definitely a good thing. So there is a business process of, say, opening an account. Somebody fills the form manually, and then it goes into scrutiny and everything, and then so it has been digitized. So somebody can go into a mobile app, fill the form, then it goes to back office, somebody checks it, and within 24 hours it's approved. Same happens with a loan application. If you want a credit card or a car loan, you can go into a bank's website, apply it, it lands into the bank. Some processes are automated, some are not, and then it is processed. So I won't say this is complete digital transformation. This is a journey towards digital transformation. So people are focusing more on using technology to automate the existing business processes. Let that be happen. But side by side, let's utilize the data science and the artificial intelligence to use decision making techniques and making things straight through.